Hello, welcome back to my channel for 2018. Hopefully I'm going to have some great cards throughout the year. I'm glad you could join me. Today's card I'm going to be making a Valentine's card. Now I did have a few problems. You know, sometimes when you do a card it goes really smoothly and other times different things happen and you aren't as pleased as you thought you were going to be at the end. Well, this is one of them, but I'll go through some of those things when I get to them. I'm going to be starting with my usual card base 5 by 7 inches, but I'm using a pink one this time, and I've got a pink panel that's just slightly smaller than that and a spare piece of card that I'm going to be cutting this heart-shaped die out of, so it just needs to be big enough for that. I'm going to be doing some foiling with a stencil on this card, so I've got the Tim Holtz floral layered background stencil here. I'm going to be using some deco foil red and also the deco foil transfer gel, which is just marvellous stuff. I'm going to start by doing the sentiment on the scrap piece of card where I'm going to be cutting out the heart, and I'm just going to keep it very simple with this Paper Extra sentiment stamp that I've got. It's quite an old stamp, and I'm just going to put Love You on with black ink and clear embossing powder, so I'll go ahead and do that. I've learnt when I'm stamping sentiments, and this has taken me a long time I have to admit, it's much better just to gently kiss the stamp onto the card and then maybe do it once, twice or even 3 times just very gently. You don't get any of that stamping where you have thick down one end and thin down the other, or you know, thicker in the middle or something. So just barely touch the stamp onto the card, and you can do that with the MISTI and then have several goes at doing just very lightly, and you get a lot crisper sentiment that way. Now that the sentiment's done, I can get on with doing the stencil with the transfer gel and let that dry, because it has to be thoroughly dried before you can do the foiling. So I'm going to just stick the card panel down onto a board with some painter's tape just to make it nice and flat, and I'm also going to mask out a couple of the parts of the stencil because they stop quite abruptly and I want it to look like it is continuous. So I'm going to mask off a couple of the flowers and leaves just so that it looks nicer when I come to foil it. So I'm using just painter's tape to cover those over as well. and then I'm going to spread a thin coating of the transfer gel onto that just with a palette knife. The smoother finish you can get, the better it is for giving a nice foiled look at the end. Once you've got all the nooks and crannies filled, you can scrape off the excess and pop it back in your pot. I'm just going to do a little bit at the top of the other piece of card, just ready for my heart, and that's the transfer gel done. Once the gel's totally dry, it looks shiny, and there's no white patches on it at all. It's ready to do the foiling. So I'm just cutting a piece of the deco foil big enough to cover where I've got the transfer gel on both pieces, and I'll pop it into a carrier sheet and send it through my ink machine that's been heating behind me, and it's ready to go. Now this is where I realised I'd made the first mistake. What I hadn't realised was that it was going to stick to my sentiment where it crossed over on that. So I've got a big blob where it says love on the heart part. I've also got some foil in places I didn't want it, which I can just use a sand eraser and sand that off, or even scrape it off with a knife. It gets some of it off but not all of it. I realise that I don't really need to worry about the top one because my heart's going to cover that, but I do need to try and get the bottom one off. But then it ends up, I did another silly thing and it ends up being completely pointless, and I've got to redo it again anyway. I ended up trying to fix a leaf that hadn't foiled properly on the front panel by painting a little bit of transfer gel on, letting it dry, and then re-putting it through the ink machine. But I realised that the parts that were foiled were going to stick to the carrier sheet, so what I did was grabbed a bit of wax paper to put over it to protect it, and it ended up leaving wax onto the card and leaving a horrid mark. So I ended up having to completely redo the foiled panel and also the part that I was going to cut out with the heart die. Oh well. So another pair of the front panel and the heart die cut out, and I'm back on track again with the cards, so I'm just ready more or less to put all the parts together now. I've cut out a square scallop with a Couture Creations die, and I'm going to put that behind the heart because I realised when I started playing around with it that the heart was a bit lost, so it needed a background, so that's what I figured would work the best. So I started off thinking I was going to put foam tape onto the back of the front panel, but then when I realised I was going to put foam on the heart as well and the square panel, I decided it was going to be too much, so I've ended up just sticking the foiled panel straight onto the card base, and then putting some foam, craft foam, onto the back of the scallop square and the heart, and I'll stick them down onto the card. Once I have the craft foam on the back of the scallop square and the heart, I can start sticking the layers down onto the card panel. I've done a little red satin bow to go on the heart just to break the plainness of the heart. I'll stick the heart on with a glue dot that I've got. I'm also going to stick a little heart gem on the centre of the bow, also with a glue dot, just to make sure that that sticks really well. And then because I couldn't use the sentiment like I'd planned on the heart, well, I could have stamped it afterwards, but I decided I would just put a sentiment towards the bottom. So I've made a little banner with a sentiment, and frame that in the red card just to tie in with the red scallop square, and that's the card finished. As I said, the card wasn't exactly how I thought it was going to be in my head, but that's okay. It's a nice enough card. So thanks for joining me. I'll leave you looking at some photos of the close-ups of the card. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. It's good for me to see whether you liked it or not. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.